Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. I'm Chris Carter here, and we're taking your questions from DKPittsburghSports.com and answering them on this show here at Highmark Stadium in DK Pittsburgh Sports Studios. Now, I'm here. Chris Benson's sitting along with me, producing and stuff. And we have some good Steelers questions here. I'm Chris Carter, NFL analyst here at DKPittsburghSports.com. The Steelers are gearing up. We now know that they're going to face the Jacksonville Jaguars in the playoffs. So a lot of people got a lot of questions. The Jaguars whooped the Steelers 30-9 earlier in the regular season at Heinz Field, but the Steelers are a lot different of a team now, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that they have to look out for. Our first question comes from Marenberg, who asks, the issue on defense still appears to be unable to compensate for the loss of Ryan Shazier's speed in pursuit when the other team goes wide. What can the Steelers do to remedy this vulnerability? Well, Marenberg, that's a good question. We talked about that a little bit in my midweek reader on DKPittsburghSports.com. One of the things that the Steelers have been trying to do, of course, personnel-wise, we know Sean Spence is getting a majority of the snaps. LJ Ford is the guy they bring in for passing downs. And but the Steelers have been using several different fronts and new looks to try and not just confuse opponents, but make sure that they're putting their players in the best situations to win. And sometimes that involves four down guys up front instead of 3 down linemen. What I mean by that is normally the Steelers have historically run a 3-4 since Dick LeBeau took over in Pittsburgh, and that the 3-4 implies that you have 3 down linemen and 4 stand-up linebackers. But with the personnel exchange now, with the Steelers, they know they have their 3 good linemen in Hargrave, Hayward, and Tuitt as their starters. But they've been throwing in a little bit of Tyson Alualu. They've been moving people around. They've been having T.J. Watt or Bud Dupree act as that 4th down lineman sort of player. And that's what the Steelers have been trying to do to, I guess, compensate and help set the edge a little bit better. They're trying to get a little bulkier on those edges and use their most talented players in better positions to help them win. So, Marenberg, to answer your question, especially in the run plays, they used to rely, Shazier would destroy plays by himself, even when he schematically shouldn't even be there. Like if you go back to my midweek reader called Replacing Ryan, and how the Steelers just can't find a substitute for him, but they're finding many ways to do it. If you look back, one of the first plays I show is a play he made against the Chicago Bears, and it was a stretch run to the right side. Shazier is lined up on the left side of the defense, and it's going to take him forever to get there. But instead, because of his speed, he not only crosses the face of the lineman that was supposed to block him, he gets past the lineman that was supposed to block Vince Williams, and then gets into the right side of the play and shuts it down all by himself. That's the kind of speed that Shazier has. He neutralizes and shuts down plays even when he's really not supposed to be there. The Steelers don't have that now. Sean Spence is decent. One thing I think he does really well is he knows how to use his hands. He's not a big linebacker, but he's strong enough to fight off when he engages with offensive linemen to maybe win some hand battles, spin off, and disengage. That's what they really need right now. So to offset it, to answer your question more specifically, to offset it, it's just about making sure that the Steelers can't just put Spence and have him guess gaps that are going to be about 3 to 6 feet wide. And what I mean by that is often what Shazier would be, he'd be the middle guy in the defense, and he'd have to read the progression of the play in the guards, see which play the run is going, and often he'd be the guy that they would assign to block or to fill a gap about 6 yards to his left or 6 yards to his right. But because he had the speed, he could close those distances so quickly. Now, if you try to put Vince Williams or Sean Spence there, you're putting yourself at a vulnerability. So it's all about scheming to protect which gaps you want and sort of putting more of an emphasis on each player. Because in that position, you're putting a huge emphasis on Ryan Shazier and allowing other players to sort of be in a position where they can if they make a big play, that's great for them. But you want them to sort of force them to him. Now you're having a situation where you kind of want to put the emphasis of the playmaker on maybe a Cam Hayward or Stephon Tuitt. So what the Steelers are going to do is they're going to put those guys in the key gaps that they expect them to hold down and either draw the double team to free up the linebackers or make sure that they have the one-on-one that they expect them to win. And so far, that's worked for the most part. People look at the Texans and the Brown games and see the rushing totals they gave up. But when you think about it, they said we were going to allow the Texans to run the ball as much as they wanted. We knew that they weren't going to score. And they only scored one time on an insanely good play by DeAndre Hopkins. And the same thing goes with the Browns. Cam Hayward wasn't out there. But when you look at that defense and you see that their emphasis was on making sure that no huge plays broke out from the run. And there were one or two, but for the most part, they hung in there. They were able to make the plays. They had 6 sacks on the day. It was one of those games where some big plays broke out, but at the same time, the Steelers were experimenting a lot, and that's what I think you should be looking at if you're an anxious Steelers fan sitting out there in Lincoln or Lawrenceville or South Hills or wherever you're at. Just know that. If you're looking back at these games and thinking, oh, man, how are we going to stop Leonard Fournette and all that stuff, you're worried about this team. I tell you right now, those are not the games that you need to be looking at. If I look at a game, I look at maybe the New England Patriots game, because that was probably the best display of defense that this team had put together in the absence of Ryan Shazier. Really, the second half of the Bengals game was probably it. But when I look at that game, the Patriots had to be pretty much perfect to execute on that day. And they were when it was Tom Brady to Rob Gronkowski. But for the most part, the Steelers were taking away the runs that they wanted to rely on. They were running with their receivers down the field. No one was walking wide open. No one was beating their man-in-man coverage. A lot of it was the Steelers just were in the right spots. And they put an emphasis on, hey, we need everyone to do their job. We're not looking to have an X-factor guy that flies around the field like a Troy Polamalu or a Ryan Shazier. We're looking for people to win in their spots, get to the quarterback, or make sure you're blanketing your man so if the ball comes, you're sitting there and you're waiting to make a play. So that's the big thing, I guess, with Ryan Shazier is you have to, in compensating for his loss, and we're speaking strictly on an X's and O's standpoint. We're not talking about spiritually or we all hope that he gets well, but we're talking about what schematically can the Steelers do. And Keith Butler's, but he's been experimenting. There were times that Artie Burns was blitzing, and I think Artie Burns has blitzed all of 3 times this season. But that was the interception that they got Kaiser to throw to Sean Davis in the second half. It was because Artie Burns blitzed, and no one saw that coming. And certainly the Browns didn't. So, they're also putting Cam Sutton out there on passing downs to run with running backs who try to become receivers in 3rd and long situations. So there's going to be a ton of different things the Steelers are probably going to throw at you. And I'm pretty sure right now Keith Butler has some things specifically he's saving for the Patriots game. I also think that for those people who might be worried about, again, the Jaguars team that beat the Steelers, and they remember that Leonard Fournette had that 90-yard touchdown run in the first game. I want to remind people that he averaged less than 3 yards per carry going into the fourth quarter of that game. The reason that he got that is because the Jaguars basically just kept running the ball and just they didn't have to do anything else. And they kind of wore down the Steelers' defense and you even saw Mike Mitchell in the defense. They were talking about we need to make a turnover, we need to go in and strip the ball, we need to do these extra things because the offense of the Steelers was doing nothing. And and worse than nothing, they were putting points on the board for the Jaguars. They threw 2 pick sixes and 5 interceptions overall. And I guess I shouldn't say I should say Ben Roethlisberger was doing that. But when it comes to defensively, they had everything contained against Leonard Fournette, just like they had everything contained against Kareem Hunt. I think when they play the Jaguars, they know the run's going to be coming because they know that Blake Bortles isn't going to beat them on his own. So that's the biggest thing. If they prepare for that, I think you're going to see some looks that we haven't seen before, or if we have seen them before, we're going to see them play them very aggressively and emphasize that they're going to force Bortles to beat you with his arm. So I guess, Marenberg, that should answer your question as far as how they are going to continue to compensate without Ryan Shazier. We're certainly going to be talking about that. It's going to be a huge topic this week and potentially next week if they do beat the Jaguars, because you presume that the Patriots at home wouldn't lose to a Titans team led by Marcus Mariota. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We got some more questions from you great subscribers, and we'll be getting to them right after this message.
Football season is here, and it's time to cash in on the nonstop sports action with MyBookie.ag. They have in-game live betting on nearly every sporting event. Plus, MyBookie.ag will match your deposit with a bonus up to 100%. With decades of expertise and no-hassle payouts, you'll experience the greatest customer service in the business. Guaranteed. Use promo code DKRadio to activate your bonus of up to 100%. Call 844-900-BETS or visit MyBookie.ag to open an account. Sign up today.
Miller Lite is the original light beer, and we'll always brew it to have more taste, with only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs. Because we believe that if you compromise on taste, you can taste the compromise. Miller Lite. Hold true.
Great beer, great responsibility. 2018 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Average analysis, 12 fluid ounces. Less than 1 gram protein, 0 grams fat.
What I want from my public accounting firm is big ideas.
But I don't want to lose the personal attention.
My company needs global capabilities.
From a firm with local ownership.
And I want to work with industry experts.
Who take the time to understand my unique challenges. And that's what sets Schneider Downs apart. Expertise for the most complex business issues. With the service you need every day. To learn how our big thinking with a personal focus can help your company, visit schneiderdowns.com.
If you're one of the thousands of Western Pennsylvanians who love to get outdoors, then you need to check out this amazing new website, stepoutside.org. Hi, I'm Dan Kovacevic of DK Sports Radio. I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh. I know about the outdoor life that's available to all of us in Western Pennsylvania. Learn where, when, and how you can go camping, hiking, hunting, take part in power sports, shooting sports, water sports in your local community, across our region, across the country at stepoutside.org.
Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A, where we're cracking open some questions for you. Right now, we got a question from our old buddy Church of Greg, who asks, the Steelers have very distinct relationships with their AFC North opponents. The Ravens, as true competitive rivals. The Bengals always find a way to blow it and can't get past the Steelers. And the Browns think they're rivals, but are really a doormat. If you had to assign Penguins rivals as the Ravens, Bengals, and Browns of the NHL, who would you choose for each? That's an interesting question, Church of Greg. Now, I'm not a hockey aficionado, but I do follow the sport and the Penguins. Being a local Pittsburgher, I've kept up with the team over the years. That's an interesting thought, because the Penguins have had their different runs of rivals, and the NFL works a lot differently than the NHL when it comes to teams. You know, there's always, like, with the NHL, it seems like some teams find a way to dig themselves out and be competitive, at least at some point, right? Like the Canes have been competitive, even though for the most part they haven't. You know, there's been teams, but is there really a team in the NHL that is like the Browns, that is just, it's so inept? Now, another part is that their seasons are 80-plus games long, so plenty of room to make up for your mistakes, and, you know, not go winless in a season. So that's a whole nother story. But let's start at the top. Let's start at the top. Who is the Ravens in the NHL if we're talking in comparison to the Penguins? My top two guesses, I would, you know, I lean a little bit to the Rangers, because they did knock the Penguins out of the playoffs in, 2014 and 2015. And, you know, they did well for a bit, but the problem with that, the Rangers, it's been too long since they've been champions. And the Ravens have won at least twice in the past 20 years. They won with that 2000 team, though they weren't ultra rivals with the Steelers when they won that game. You know, they were rivals, but it was nothing like it was when, you know, the Steelers and them started knucking in the playoffs in the 2000s era. You know, after that 2001 game where Amos Zaraway dove over the top of the pile, beating Ray Lewis, and the Steelers won the divisional round. 2008 when Troy Polamalu had the pick six and Willis McGahee just got utterly destroyed by Ryan Clark. In 2010 when the Steelers came back from a 14-point deficit to win. And then 2014 when the Ravens beat the Steelers for the first time in the playoffs after Le'Veon Bell went out and the Steelers tried to replace him with Ben Tate. So if I had to go with a team, like that. I'd lean to the Bruins. I know they're outside the Penguins division, but you look at the Bruins, and I just remember that sweep they had of the Penguins back in the Eastern Conference Finals, and there was a period where the Bruins were just really pesky, and they also, I mean, they would hit Sidney Crosby just like the Ravens would hit Ben Roethlisberger. They were nasty, they were competitive, but you had to respect them. They were physical. They knew how to score, and they had that was it Tuukka Rask when he was just saving everything. And when it didn't save, he hit the crossbar. It was just crossbar after crossbar after crossbar in a few of those games. Oh man, don't get me started about that nightmare. I was on a summer break trip to Vegas, and I was watching. I think it was game 4 or 5, or no, it wasn't 4. It couldn't have been 5 because they got swept. But I think it was game 3, and I think because they went down 3-0, and I was like, man, that was depressing. And I had a dealer from Boston who was giving me crap because I was wearing my Pirates gear. Ugh, nightmares. Anyways, moving on. So I'd say the Bruins or the Ravens. The Bengals I would give to the Capitals because the Capitals, like the Bengals, have talent on their roster. Now, I think the Capitals have, if you're comparing talent, they would be a much more talented roster in the NHL than the Bengals are in the NFL. They don't have the Bengals, I guess. A.J. Green could be considered close to Ovechkin, but the problem is A.J. Green's in a position where he needs someone to throw him the ball, and Ovechkin doesn't need someone to throw him the puck because he's going to find a way to snipe and score. So I'd go with the Bengals. You know, they've been pesky. They've won the division a few times. They've gone into the playoffs hosting the Steelers twice now in an opening playoff game, and then they've lost both times. And they can't beat the Penguins in the playoffs. That's just been their arch nemesis. And they hate the Penguins. Those rivalry games are really nasty, just like the Bengals games are really nasty. So if I was to go with anyone, I would say the Capitals are the Bengals because they can't get past them, and they seem to implode. And they've had those moments where people have said, you know, this is the year. I remember 2 years ago when the Penguins won their first of the back-to-back cups, and that was the season everyone said, this is the Capitals' year. If they don't win it this year, they'll never win it. And then they didn't win it. And then the next year, people said, all right, maybe they got a shot. Nope, they don't got a shot. And it's the same way. I mean, it's just like, you know, the Capitals, they put up a fight, but the Penguins just snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat from and really out of the hands of the Capitals, just like Ryan Shazier ripped the ball out of Giovanni Bernard's hands and sent the Bengals crying, and we had the crying Bengals fan that became famous. Anyways, the Browns, I'm just doing this purely out of spite. The Browns for the NHL are the Philadelphia Flyers. Yeah, you heard me. So what if the Flyers have beaten the Penguins in the playoffs once in the past 10 years? I don't care. They are horrible. They haven't won since 1975. They haven't won since 1975. And they wear orange. And they're from a horrible city like Philadelphia. Yeah, you heard me. No, I got lots of friends in Philadelphia, so this is just me messing with them. But still, the Flyers, don't get me started about the Flyers. They are the Browns. They can't. They get stars, and they had Scott Hartnell, and they had Richard Simmons was one of their guys. I don't even. They've had the talent. They've gotten feisty now and then, but at the end of the day, they're gonna fall on their faces. They're gonna trip up on their own skates. They're not gonna get it done. They haven't, like I said, they haven't won a title. Of all the teams I've named, yes, the Capitals have never won a title. So I mean, you could say, but the Capitals have at least been like they've won. Like they've gotten the top seed, and then the Penguins have had to go take them out of that. The Flyers, not really, man. I mean, I get it. Yeah, they went up 3-0 on the Penguins. I think was it 2011 or 2012. And they ended up winning that series, and it got nasty a little bit in those games, and it's pesky, but it's just like when with the Browns occasionally, they hit Ben Roethlisberger. They took him out the week before. I think it was the 2008 or the 2010 playoffs. Luckily the Steelers had a bye, so he was able to get back healthy, and they still got to the Super Bowl. But but I just with the Flyers, they're just not that good. And they've tripped over themselves for years, even when they get talent. And the thing is, the Browns, they have talent, but they are just on another level of ineptitude. And that's why I started this segment with, I don't think there's a Browns of the NHL, because they're just that bad. But if I had to pick one, I'm picking you, Philly, just because. But that being said, we got one more question to handle. We'll be right back to answer it.
In Pittsburgh, we bleed black and gold and love our city. Born in Pittsburgh and now celebrating 130 years in the business, Henny Jewelers is proud to be your premier jewelry store. The holiday season is quickly approaching, so whether it's choosing that watch you've always wanted or you're searching for the ring that was made for her, trust Henny Jewelers. Visit our store on Walnut Street in Shadyside to see our extensive inventory of designer engagement rings, watches, and one-of-a-kind jewelry. For more, go to hennyjewelers.com and follow us on social.
Embarrassed by that stained carpet in your office? Tired of looking at your dull, dirty floor? My Floor Needs is here to fix that. With years of experience and 24/7 service, My Floor Needs offers stripping and waxing, carpet, tile, grout, and concrete cleaning, as well as polishing and buffing services. Call 888-67-MY-FLOOR or email info@myfloorneeds.com for a free estimate and get your floors looking like new again. Whatever your floor needs, call 888-67-MY-FLOOR.
Does your company ever miss its sales goals or struggle getting new business?
Is it tough to hire or to give reps the right tools?
Hi, I'm Dan, and I started Engaged Prospect right here in Pittsburgh to help companies like yours.
And I'm Sam. We're helping companies hit sales goals and grow their businesses.
Think of us as your inside sales team.
Our clients are experts in their fields. We're experts in inside sales.
Give us a call today at 412-715-5151.
Or visit us online at engagedprospect.com/DK.
It's been 50 years since the Summer of Love, but if you're not performing as well as you'd like, check out NEDforless.com. I'm Eric Cushy of Curtis Pharmacy. Don't pay premium prices for the little blue pill. Sildenafil, the same active ingredient as in Viagra, costs 80% less. NEDforless.com. All we need is your physician's name. We do the rest. Free shipping, too. NEDforless.com. Curtis Pharmacy, Western PA's Better Way Pharmacy. CurtisPharmacy.com.
Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A. I'm Chris Carter, NFL analyst here at DKPittsburghSports.com, and we have come to the final segment of the Q&A. It's time for the question of the week. And this week's winner is none other than Clint Novak. Congratulations, Clint. You have won a prize that we will not distinguish at this point in time because we are going to message you about this prize. Be sure to check your email. We will be getting in contact with Clint. Clint, congratulations for this question because I'm loving this question because it's a Steelers question that makes me go back. And I love going back all the time about great stuff. What was the loudest Steelers crowd you can remember being a part of or witnessing? So I'll start with being a part of because I've been covering games this year. This is my first year going to all the games, and I've been to some games. But I got to say the loudest moments when Shazier popped up on the screen at Heinz Field, that was pretty loud. People lost it when they saw him on the screen. It got very loud for when the referee announced that the game was over for the Ravens game because no one knew what was happening. And I remember I was sitting in the press box. I'm sitting next to Jeff Hathorn from 93.7 The Fan, and Dale and I were all talking about how could the Ravens get this? And I point to the clock and I say, the clock is moving. And they're like, that's a mistake. No, I think that's real. The clock is moving. And then it's 000. Everyone looks around and you hear the referee say, that's the end of the game. Pittsburgh wins. And just the eruption from Heinz Field, that was insane. I'll tell you what, and this is on a kind of ironic or just funny note. But louder than that was when they threw up the hands for the Jesse James touchdown against the Patriots. That got eventually called back because they said he didn't control the ball or survive the ground, even though Al Riveron doesn't even know what that means himself because of the Jalen Ramsey interception that beat the Bills. That's another story. Don't get me started on that call. But the crowd lost it when that happens. And you know what? Also in that game, when Vince Williams intercepted Tom Brady, there was a sense of we got him. We got him. We got this guy that's been torturing us for years. He can bleed. He can bleed. He's human. It was kind of that feeling. But the loudest I ever remember, and I wasn't there for this. Chris Benson was, fun fact. Was the Polamalu pick six in the 2008 AFC Championship game. Man, I remember I was sitting in Cheney University's lounge in Yarnell Hall, and when he intercepted that ball and he was running and zigging and zagging, the eruption of the crowd, because they just knew that was it. That was the moment that they needed. The Steelers were up by 2 points. I think the Ravens were trying to drive with a few minutes left. The Steelers defense had been elite all game, and they get that interception. And it just, as soon as he caught the ball, and it was a brilliant leaping interception, and then he just starts breaking. And he doesn't even need to score at that point because the crowd has lost it. But the fact that he scored just adds on to it, and the cheer just keeps going. It doesn't stop. That was the longest, loudest, sustained I've ever heard of a reaction at Heinz Field. Now, also, I will say that in the next time they played the Ravens in the playoffs, which was 2010, 2011 technically, but it was the 2010 season, when they played the second Renegade. And I mean, again, also I'm referring to YouTube videos that people have posted of while being at the game. That was insane. I mean, it went viral how big that Renegade was when they posted the second Renegade. Just the entire crowd was just twirling towels, because at that point the Steelers went into the half down 14. They come out, they intercept Joe Flacco, and they get the ball. And they put points up on the board. Then they play it again, and they sack Joe Flacco, and they go nuts. Oh, no, it wasn't an interception at first. I think they stripped Ray Rice of the football. That was the first one. And the second one, they did it a second time. I mean, even the announcers got into it. They said, Steelers fans, you won it. You got it. And they bust out a Renegade. And that's the power of Renegade. If you've seen that documentary going around, that's the power of Renegade. When people, it's legit. When they play that thing, people get hyped. And, I mean, it's not that great a song. I agree. I don't even like Styx that much. But that song, it just has mojo in Pittsburgh. Or should I say it has juju. But that's another story. But thank you for the great question, Clint Novak, because that's a fun one, going back to the loud times of Heinz Field. I can't testify to, times of Three River Stadium. I just wasn't I'm not as well known. I don't know about crowd noise. I can tell you about games and X's and O's of those of a lot of the past games. But as far as loud and being excited, I tell you what, go look up that Polamalu interception in that Ravens game. Go look for live videos on YouTube. There's about 3 that I can think off the top of my head. There's one person who got it and caught the whole interception pretty up close. It's the best view. It looked like they had club seats, and the person screaming, I got it, because he's just like so happy that he just videotaped. He's putting on social media what could be the most famous play in modern Steelers history. But it's not because Santonio Holmes and Troy Polamalu. That's another story. But that was a huge moment. But also, I think the best view. There's one that's like really far back. It's so far back, and this is back when cell phones really didn't have great cameras yet. It's so far back you can't even really see the players moving, but you see the field, and you just hear like a horn playing, brr, brr, and then you know when Troy Polamalu's caught the ball, because the entire crowd just erupts, and people are jumping up, down, hugging each other, and there's a guy saying, "Go, go, go, yeah!" Just when he crosses the goal line, man, that was such a cool moment. Those are the things that when I was in college, I would watch those on YouTube, and I'm like, man, Heinz Field looks crazy, man. But that's why it's a great environment. That's why the Steelers do really well there. And that's why it's so much fun to see those. And I got to tell you, from the press box, seeing that this year, man, there's been some special moments. But we'll see if there'll be some more special moments when they take on the Jaguars at Sunday at 1 p.m. Dale Lally and I will be on here to talk about that a few times this week. A few times. But, yeah. That was a great question, Clint. Thanks for taking us back with that. Remember, be on the lookout for your prize. Thank you for listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. Be sure to look out for all the great content we got coming up. I'm going to be doing a breakdown on Carter's Classroom, on Blake Bortles and why he scrambles, and why the Steelers have to look out for that. And pretty much nothing else with him, but that's going to be another story. But, yeah, thanks for listening to DK Sports Radio. Stay tuned. We got some more great content coming right at you.